Hello and Happy New Year to you. Welcome to another edition of Foreign Dispatches, the program that takes you around the world in 25 minutes. I'm Layo Olaride. On the program this week, New Year celebrations ring around the world as different countries welcome 2025 with beautiful fireworks display and resolutions for the year. Plus, tributes go out to the 39th President of the United States of America, Jimmy Carter, who has died at the age of 100. From fireworks displays to hugs and kisses, global citizens around the world ushered in the year 2025 with lots of excitement and hope for a better year. We take you around the world now to see the different ways many countries celebrated.
New Zealanders were amongst the first in the world to celebrate the arrival of 2025 with a fireworks display in Auckland on Tuesday, January 1st. The fireworks show started with a 10-second countdown projected on the base of Auckland's 328-meter tall sky tower, followed by fireworks illuminating the night sky and accompanied by a laser light show. The display lasted 5 minutes with more than 500 kilograms of pyrotechnics launched from various firing sites, with the Auckland Harbour Bridge also illuminated. Sydney in Australia welcomed the 2025 New Year with the city's biggest ever fireworks display, featuring a golden waterfall effect falling from the iconic Sydney Harbour Bridge. The 12-minute spectacular stretched 7 kilometers along Sydney Harbour and featured 23,000 individual pyrotechnic shots and more than 13,000 aerial shells. According to organizers, there were 40,000 ground-based shooting effects and 264 firing locations across the Sydney Harbour Bridge, up from 184 last year, with 4 aerial pyrotechnic platforms introduced as additional firing locations between the bridge and Sydney Opera House. For the first time, fireworks were launched from 18 new positions on the western side of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Fireworks were also launched from the Sydney Opera House, barges and 5 city building rooftops. The display used more than 9 tons of fireworks and more than 1 million people were expected to attend. As many celebrated the entry of a new year, tourists near Edinburgh Castle expressed their disappointment at the cancellation of Hogmanay festivals. Edinburgh's New Year Hogmanay celebration, where tens of thousands of revelers gather in the Scottish capital for street parties and fireworks, had to be cancelled due to bad weather.
We're super bummed out. Obviously, we totally understand safety is definitely the most important thing, and the weather is getting a bit extreme. But we were really looking forward to it, but it's just a reason to come back another time.
But as Australians, we understand weather sometimes takes control of everything. We know extreme weather in the other extreme, which is heat. So we're not surprised, but disappointed.
Tourists had to make alternative plans to celebrate bringing in the new year. However, in London, the city rang in the new year with spectacular fireworks display on Wednesday, January 1st. The River Thames City and skyline provided a stunning backdrop for the dazzling spectacle as the iconic Big Ben struck midnight. The festivities went ahead despite much of the UK being subjected to severe weather warnings for the coming week, with heavy rain and strong winds to affect parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. In South America, millions of revelers gathered on Rio de Janeiro's famed Copacabana beach to usher in 2025 in what has become one of the world's famous New Year's Eve celebrations. People were entertained throughout by performances from musicians. Concerts also held at other venues in Rio de Janeiro, with a total of 13 stages spread across the city. At the stroke of midnight on Wednesday, January 1st, the skies over Rio lit up with a spectacular fireworks display. Local officials had estimated that 2.5 million people would gather to watch the 12-minute fireworks show. The annual Réveillon New Year's Eve celebration is one of the city's largest tourist attractions and an iconic symbol of the city. Speaking of world-famous New Year celebrations, thousands of revelers cheered in the New Year after standing in New York City's Times Square for hours with the annual ceremony of a descending crystal-clad ball. Many had arrived early in the morning for a spot in one of the barricaded pens set up by the New York Police Department ahead of several musical performances before the final countdown to midnight.
New York.
It was 1907 when the first ball was dropped in Times Square on New Year's Eve atop One Times Square. In France, thousands of people celebrated the passing of the New Year in Paris as fireworks lit up the sky above the Arc de Triomphe monument. Gathered on the iconic Champs-Élysées Avenue, people watched various musical performances, light shows, and a fireworks display. Joy exploded as the countdown ended, with attendees jumping, kissing each other, and yelling "Bonne année" all around. In Germany, tens of thousands of people gathered under the Brandenburg Gate in the capital Berlin to usher in the start of the year 2025. Up to 60,000 people were present on the streets of 17 June on the western side of the gate, which once separated East and West Berlin until the fall of the Berlin Wall in November 1989. The party took place in a closed-off area stretching over 1.9 kilometers from Brandenburg Gate to the Victory Column Monument. Greece's ancient Parthenon temple on the Acropolis had a quiet New Year with limited fireworks and a small drone display to ring in 2025. The mayor of Athens said this year's celebration took into account the distress that loud fireworks cause in pets and animals. Local media reported the initiative began with Mayor Haris Doukas' decision to protect the city's animal population. Which, according to studies, pyrotechnics trigger panic responses in animals. In the Middle East, people gathered at a Christmas market in Damascus to ring in the new year with fireworks in the early hours of January 1st. Crowds could be seen strolling around the market before the fireworks display. Some waved Syrian flags and recorded the event on their phones. Syrians ushered in a new era when fighters seized control of Damascus on December 8, 2024, forcing former President Bashar al-Assad to flee after more than 13 years of civil war and ending his family's decades-long rule. Syrians celebrated and refugees began to pour back home from neighboring countries. Qatar welcomed the new year with a grand drone and firework display at Lusail Boulevard, drawing hundreds of people. The 2022 FIFA World Cup host country welcomed 2025 with celebrations in various cities, including the capital, Doha. In Lusail, people gathered at Lusail Boulevard, with many capturing the countdown lights in the sky. The New Year's Day spectacle on January 1st, 2025 showcased a drone display spelling out 2025 alongside a fireworks show. A United Arab Emirates fireworks shown over Ras Al Khaimah as hundreds gathered to ring in the new year. In one of 7 emirates that make up the United Arab Emirates, Ras Al Khaimah used drones and fireworks for this year's display. Drones showed the countdown and other formations, including an oyster shell with a pearl and a hand gripping a ball.
4, 3, 2, 1, here we go! All right!
In Asia, Thailand welcomed 2025 with eco-friendly fireworks crafted from sticky rice spanning 1,400 meters across the Chao Phraya River in the heart of Bangkok. The 6-act fireworks display, enhanced with pastel and gold hues, celebrated Thai heritage under the theme Celebrating the Everlasting Legacy of Siam, and took place at Icon Siam, one of the city's largest shopping malls. In other parts of Bangkok, people gathered at shopping malls along the river to watch the fireworks light up the city's skyline, with Royal Grand Palace offering a view from across the river.
准备了，一起抬手倒数，10、9、8、7、6、5、4、3、2、1。
Happy New Year！
内角球，内关键球打了回来，比赛结束了，中了一个中华。
Taiwan welcomed 2025 with spectacular fireworks blast-off skyscraper Taipei 101 on Wednesday. The 6-minute fireworks and light show featured the theme Team Taiwan Champion, inspired by the victory of its baseball team at an international championship in November. The fireworks display at Taiwan's tallest building, which is 508 meters high, started in 2003, attracting thousands of visitors from all over the world to witness the special moment on streets. However, it's a starry contrast in warring places like Ukraine and Gaza. As Ukraine marked the start of 2025, its landmark Maidan Square remained empty due to curfew that was introduced since Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022.
Украинцы, дорогие украинки.
In a New Year video, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he believed the United States will stand alongside Kyiv as it fights to stop Russia's 34-month invasion, adding that only a strong Ukraine could secure peace and earn the worldwide respect. Displaced Gazans in Deir al-Bala, central Gaza, shared their New Year's wishes for peace and the rebuilding of their homes in 2025. As Gaza continues to be ravaged by war, Residents say their greatest hope for the new year is to see an end to the conflict and to return to their homes. A simple dream that remains an immense challenge to achieve.
Welcome back to the program. Friends of the late Jimmy Carter pay their respects to the former president. These are friends who lived with the Carter family in Plains, Georgia. Other well-wishers also paid their last respect, speaking on his legacy and his life.
Beloved friends of former U.S. President Jimmy Carter are sharing their sincere gratitude for the impact he had on their lives after the 100-year-old passed away.
My name is Philip Kurland. I'm one of the owners with my wife of the Plains Trading Post in downtown Plains, Georgia. We are the largest retail political memorabilia dealer in the United States.
Philip Kurland is co-owner of the Plains Trading Post in downtown Plains, Georgia, said to be the largest retail political memorabilia dealer in the United States. Kurland knew the late Jimmy Carter for 30 years.
I've known President Carter for 30 years, and he made someone uncaring into a very caring, compassionate person. Now, what do you call an old snowman? A puddle.
Kurland and his wife own the Plains Trading Post, which he calls the largest retail political memorabilia store in the United States. Kurland says Carter would stop by his downtown Plains store often.
We talk about current events, we talk about politics, we talk about religion, we talk about all the no topics. So I had the ability of bringing any current thing or anything from the past and ask him what his thoughts were.
Kurland says he still remembers his favorite question to ask Carter.
My favorite question to ask him that he never answered, and I asked him this question many times, was what really happens at Area 51? And every time I answered him, I got the biggest smile, and to this day I always wondered what that meant.
For the residents of Plains, the late Carter will always be alive.
They'll always be alive in Plains. I feel sorry for the new people moving into the area because they won't be able to experience everything I've experienced, because everyone has their own story in Plains. To some extent, they reached out to everyone.
This is Sandra Walters, another longtime friend of President Jimmy Carter.
My name is Sandra Walters, and the way I know President Carter is that my husband and he grew up together here in Plains. My husband is from Plains. He grew up right across the street over here, and they went to the same church that Jimmy and Rosalind went to.
She reflects on his life and legacy after the 100-year-old passed away at his home in Plains, Georgia.
He would come from the front door, but he'd come straight back here, and this is where he would always want to sit, right here at this table here. And he felt like that he was at home here. Some of the things that we have enjoyed with Jimmy is that he was a politician, and he was involved in that, but more than that with us, he was just a friend and a neighbor. And so he would come down here to my house. I would have a dinner, or I had a taco soup supper every night, every Christmas.
Meanwhile, historian Lindsay Shavrinsky believes former U.S. President Jimmy Carter lived what it meant to be a virtuous person, and these are qualities that helped make him an exceptionally successful post-president.
Most of President Jimmy Carter's legacy is actually defined by what happened post-presidency, and that is incredibly unusual because few presidents are really able to get beyond that first line in their obituary. And so the fact that he is known for something that came when he was not in the most powerful office in the world, I think is perhaps remarkable and worth noting. In terms of his time in office, I think his best moment is probably the Camp David Accords, setting the stage for peace between Israel and Egypt, which is lasted to this day. Perhaps on the flip side of that, what's known as the malaise speech, in which he didn't actually ever say malaise, but he talked about a crisis of confidence in the United States and urged Americans to tighten their belts, was not particularly a message that either Americans wanted to hear or wanted to hear in that way.
During his term, Carter struggled with a bad economy and the Iran hostage crisis, but he brokered a peace deal between Israel and Egypt and later received the Nobel Peace Prize for his humanitarian work.
In terms of the disease around the world, they actually helped eradicate a couple of diseases, guinea worm, and then I think it's also called river blindness, although definitely not a medical doctor, so I would need to double check that. And what's important about those diseases is sometimes there are diseases that are common in certain places, and because they are not necessarily beyond those borders, there isn't a lot of research attention or money dedicated to help eradicating them. But humans can find a cure. Some things don't have a cure, but a lot of diseases do. And so the Carters really funneled funds and attention to help eradicating a couple of those diseases. And in doing so, they have saved the lives of millions of people, which is just a remarkable feat.
Carter lived longer than any U.S. president, and after leaving the White House, earned a reputation as a committed humanitarian. He was widely seen as a better former president than he was a president, a status he readily acknowledged.
I think Jimmy Carter didn't always necessarily feel like the type of president that Americans needed at the time. They wanted someone who I think could offer a more optimistic message, or who was a little bit better of a salesman for some of his policies. Carter really shied away from some of the bully pulpit aspects of the presidency. But the qualities that made him a decent person then, I think, have actually made him more agreeable to Americans in this moment. His decency, his goodness of spirit, his long-lasting marriage, his commitment to his faith and acting that faith out through deeds, not just words. Those are things, and I should say also his far-reaching vision about the importance of environmental protections. Those are things that almost made him more cool in the 2020s than they did in the 1970s.
The White House confirms that the official state funeral for former President Jimmy Carter will be held on January the 9th at the Washington National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. At the Carter Center in Atlanta, Georgia, admirers place flowers as tributes pour in for the former U.S. president. Outside the Carter Center in Atlanta, mourners gathered to pay their respects, leaving flowers, messages and symbolic items such as peanuts and habitat for humanity helmets, symbols of Carter's legacy in agriculture, humanitarian work and affordable housing initiatives. Rebecca Schmidt, a tourist and admirer of Carter, reflects on his impact.
Jimmy Carter has always been a hero of mine for many years, and I think I first really understood who Jimmy Carter was when we started doing Habitat for Humanity projects back in the early 90s. And he's always been a hero of mine for his prescience on environmental issues as well as peace, not just within our own country but for the world.
The Carter Center, founded by Jimmy and Rosalynn Carter in 1982, has become a focal point for grieving supporters. Visitors left messages and tokens celebrating Carter's legacy as the 39th U.S. president, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, and a lifelong advocate for human rights and public service. People in other states also mourned the passing of Jimmy Carter.
I am so in awe of him. I'm in awe of his presidency because he was the one who fought for the environment, civil rights, but afterwards his books that he wrote, especially on the Mideast, were tremendous. I get chills when I talk, when I think about the Camp David Agreement.
He definitely struggled a lot as a one-term president, but I think that his bigger legacy is what he did and what he could show you could do if you continue working and acting honestly as a person.
I think President Carter was one of the most influential presidents that we had, especially back in the mid-70s. It was an economical disaster going on because I was 6 years old when he was elected. By 77, he was all over the place, and then he was trying to take care of the Iran situation with the hostages. I remember that in 1979. I was 9 that year. So for him to be president, try to fix things for the economy back then, and try to get everything togetherness with everybody was very hard for him, but he made the accomplishment on doing that.
Carter, who served as president from 1977 to 1981, was widely respected for his post-presidency humanitarian efforts, including work with Habitat for Humanity and global health initiatives.
And that's the program today. Remember, our top stories are never far away. You can always catch them on channelstv.com. Thank you so much for watching the program. I'm Layo Olarinde. Happy New Year to you once again.